I'm Marcus White, leader of Everyone is God, Britain's most visionary political party. I want to solve every problem in Britain, and I want to see everyone fulfilled. This is a podcast of hard questions. See me cross-examined. Do I have the answers? Do I really have a plan that works? Ask your questions and decide for yourself.
Good afternoon, good people. You're watching the Everyone is God political podcast with Brudsy and the amazing Marcus White. Marcus, how are we feeling today?
I'm really good, thank you, Brad. How are you?
Absolutely fabulous. I was just telling you off air that we are getting some real interaction. People are asking questions, and this is what we wanted. We need that interaction from you guys. We want you to take part. Marcus is a candidate for Prime Minister at the next general election, and Marcus very much so wants to engage with the people.
I'm looking forward to engaging with the British people, any opportunity to do that and listen to what people have to say. We welcome comments and interaction on the show.
Yeah, and also how people are feeling, which is quite prominent to what we're doing today, guys. Today's all about mental health in Britain, and we're going to be digging deep into it. I've got some questions for Marcus. We're going to have a little bit of back and forth. We're going to open up. And guys, if you are watching from whatever platform, you are welcome to take part in this show at any point. Once we've finished our questions and answers, we want your interactions from you. So Marcus, are you ready, sir?
I'm ready. It's a little bit of a nervous one for me today because I'm going to be very open about my experience with mental health, and of course we're going to look at my political party's stance on it and how it's central to our politics.
Very, very, very brave, very brave. And just talking about your party, Marcus, I see that your party places psychology at the center of its policies. Do you think there's a simple psychological explanation for all the mental health issues that we see in Britain today?
We do, yes, absolutely. I've studied psychology all my life, and it's center to our politics. And I believe the simple root cause of mental health issues, it all goes back to parenting, trauma and lack of love with parenting. And for example, lots of surveys have been done through prisons, and we see these traumatic experiences that prisoners have had that contribute to their crime. So we believe it all goes back to parenting, and we have a strong parenting policy to resolve this issue. I would like to say as well, there's some very interesting historical evidence. One of the things my research has shown is that children are far more sensitive to parenting and the need for loving physical contact and nurture through their childhood. This contact with parents is absolutely essential. And in my research, one of the things that I found absolutely extraordinary was some historical evidence from orphanages of about 100 years ago, and more recently in Romania. And what they found was that when young children in orphanages are starved of physical contact with parents or other human beings, they actually die. It's fatal. In certain orphanages where they were completely starved of physical contact with humans, there was 100% death rate of the children in those orphanages. And this shows the extreme need that human beings have for loving physical contact and interaction with their parents. And we believe this is the root of the mental health problems we have in Britain and throughout the world.
Wow. They actually died, 100% of them.
It's an extraordinary piece of evidence, and we believe it's something that should be taught in all schools, because this teaches us about the needs we have as children, and everybody needs to know this so that we carry out this fundamental job of parenting correctly.
Yes, Parenting is so important. That's the start of everything, and a lot of people that do end up committing the most heinous crimes, you normally find when you do that research, you go back and see, unfortunately, one of one of the parents or a stepdad or whatever it is has done some sort of abuse, and it's led to that person feeling disconnected from society, and then they act out in, well, not act out is probably a bad word, but they retaliate or act situations that maybe most people look at and think, why would you
Yeah.
do that sort of thing. But Marcus, what do you think is causing the rising mental health and neurodivergence?
Well, we talked about the fundamental cause of it all, but in terms of why it's increasing, I think that there's two basic reasons. And the first is the pressure that parents are coming under. Over the last sort of 50 years, we've evolved from a situation where usually the mother stayed at home and looked after the children and the father worked, to where we're at now, where both parents have huge pressure on them to work. And this means that children don't get that parental contact when they're young. And this, I believe, is the root reason why mental health is getting worse in this country, because the children just aren't getting that loving interaction with the parents. But also, there is increased awareness of mental health and neurodivergence, and we're testing for it much more regularly now, and that's increasing the statistics as well. So I think there's two fundamental reasons why mental health issues are increasing in this country.
Yeah. What's the answer to it? Do you have any sort of answers within it, or?
Well, this is where we have a very simple and central policy on this, and it's our parenting policy. Parenting is the most fundamental job we do. And if you don't get that right, you build all the problems that you have in society, right up to the worst criminal activity that we see. If you get your parenting right, and then you back that up with the right education after that, you'll pretty much resolve the root cause of every problem we've got in Britain. So fundamentally, what we want to see is a complete paradigm shift on the way we place parenting in society, and the way we perceive it, and the way we structure society around parenting. And the way we want to do that is by supporting and regulating parenting. So in terms of support, what we want to do is we want to actually pay parents to parent as though it is a career, a paid job, and it's a job that's done for society at large. And then that gives parents the time and the resources to spend with their children. And that is the key to solving all these mental health problems we have, all the problems we have with corruption and violence, all the addictions we see, all of this the broadest sort of umbrella of mental health issues that includes all the problems we have emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
And also, antisocial behavior and how people are driven to things like greed. All of this goes back to parenting. And when you get your parenting right, all of that stuff just disappears, those problems.
Yeah.
And your crime rate will just fall. So you save massive amounts of money because you have less crime rate, less corruption, less people off work. And that money pays for people to parent.
Yeah. What do you think the role that social media has had in mental health for people? Because I think that is something that has 10x the sort of almost crisis that I would say we're nearly at right now. It literally 10x'd it.
I think, right, this is a really important question because it's very topical at the moment. There's lots of news about, this child went on this social media and found out how to commit suicide and then committed suicide. There's so much media around the adverse effects of social media on children. Now, our position's very simple. Social media is not the root of mental health problems or any of these issues that it's being blamed for. Now, I want to be clear here. I do see that social media can exacerbate these problems, but it's the end result. It's not the root of the problem. And I want to explain this. Look, take this a situation where a child goes on social media, finds out, is encouraged to commit suicide, and then they go and commit suicide. That child would never go through that route on social media if they were completely emotionally comfortable and sound and happy within themselves. So if you have a happy child that's brought up in a loving, nurturing environment and it becomes a secure teenager, even if they're exposed to this stuff on social media, they're not going to go and do it because they have no desire to commit suicide. They're not miserable. They're not depressed. They're not anxious. So do you see the social media is irrelevant then? They can see whatever signals they want about committing suicide, but they won't do it because they don't have the desire to. They
Yeah,
have that emotional stability.
I think there's the side of bullying that can
Ah,
the effects of
yeah,
bullying from social media. Like
yeah.
in our day, we never had social media. If you got bullied at school, you would get bullied at school, but you were able to go home and go into a safe spot. These kids today are getting bullied at school, and then the moment they leave school, they're getting bullied all through the night via these social media apps and messages and stuff. Like, it's like 20, like I've spoken to some people that have been through this, and the bullying never stops. They feel like the walls are closing on them. There's nothing there's no escape from it. So that, to an extent, I get what you're saying. You have to be of a certain ilk or in a certain mental state to sort of go through with suicide. But I also believe that you can be an average person, a normal person, a normal happy child can be bullied under that pressure of being bullying. They could feel like there's no way out. And if you see the atrocious bullying that goes on today, and this goes back to your policy on parenting as well, like you just wouldn't believe it. There are people telling kids to kill themselves 24/7, and I think there's a recent case of this happening, and it came out, and these children, they were otherwise happy, but they just got bullied to death, literally.
Okay, so thank you for bringing this up. I think it's a very good point, and I think there's two aspects to this of online bullying through social media. So the more immediate aspect, if you like, and if the sort of stance maybe that is presented in the media is about regulating what happens on social media. And that's a whole nother topic. And it's something we have very strict policies on. We would like to see complete regulation of social media to make sure this doesn't happen. However, look, it's exactly the same answer again. You see, now we're talking about bullies rather than the victim. So, why is it these children are bullying? It will be to do with their upbringing, yet again, their parenting. If children are brought up with parents that are spending plenty of time with them and they're brought up in a loving environment and they're educated correctly by both their parents and the education system, and the parents, are because they're spending time with their children, they've got a close relationship with them, and they know whether they're bullying other people online. If all of that is got right, you won't have bullies. So do you
Oh,
see social media is just it's literally a media for human beings to express themselves, and if human beings are angry and miserable and bitter, then that's what they're going to put through social media. Whereas if they're parented right, they're going to be happy and emotionally secure. They won't bully and they won't be feeling like they want to commit suicide. So the roots always go back to parenting, both on the perpetrator side and the victim side. Whatever's happening on social media, all of that happens because of parenting. So, I feel you need a multi-pronged approach to it, and the root of it is always parenting and education. And then you back that up by the correct regulation of social media.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that. I get that. I think there, I think in a hypothetical world where, where two parents are looking after children, you'd have less of these issues. But unfortunately, in this day and age, children are being brought up by one parent most of the time, and even the ones with parents. I mean, I had a lady on my show that I did a life story with. Her daughter suffered with a form of leukemia, and she lost her hair, and her mum went through a lot of trouble raising money to get her a wig, but she didn't like wearing the wig because it was just too itchy. So she was getting horrendous bullying at school, at home, via social media. And she confronted one of these parents, and you would think, you confront someone, you say your child is bullying my kid, you would get like a nice sort of, you'd get someone that's, oh my God, I'm so ashamed, I'll speak to my child immediately, I'll get it sorted. But this person came back to this person with, why don't you tell your child, and teachers also said it, why don't you tell your child just to keep the wig on at school so she sort of fits in? So this is what you're dealing with out here. You've got parents that I would say aren't fit even to be parents. You see this a lot. We've spoken about that Henry Novak case. We won't go too much into it, where his parents effectively lied to the police officer when they arrived of that situation. So you don't really have ideal parents nowadays. So it's a really difficult situation to be in. I think what you said about holding social media companies to accountability, that's perfect. I mean, that has to be done. I mean, how does something become a viral trend on social media about suicide? That's insane. The moment suicide is put into any sort of video, sort of trending video sort of thing, social media has the power. These giants have the power to just strike that straight off. But that's not happening, and it's
Well,
it's causing
Brad,
issues.
in terms of, again, maybe we'll do another show on this,
Yeah,
because we have very radical policies on the policing of social media and of all of society. And you see, the system we have in place that we want to put in place radically changes everything. And there's a number of key elements for it. The first thing is we would make the criminal justice system self-funding.
yeah,
So criminals pay for it. So this means you're never short of funds to investigate and prosecute crimes. That then means you can now afford to prosecute lesser crimes. And we would then, once you've created that opportunity, we would change law. So bad manners and bullying and all of this stuff, even at a very low level, is illegal. So now you've got a criminal justice system and the law in place. Then all you need then, I feel ultimately it should be the police that should enforce this and not social media companies. And what would happen is in our system, if anybody online or in any walk of life receives bullying or harassment or rudeness, they simply report it to the police. In our system, everybody will be accountable online. So nobody can post anything without it being known who it is. So the police would immediately know who said what and whether it's illegal. And if they were rude or bullying or anything, they would then be prosecuted for it. And then because the criminal justice system will be self-funding, they will have the funds to do that. And it would kill all of this completely dead, and it won't cost the taxpayer a penny. And this is a completely radical system that absolutely decimates these problems, kills them dead. It's a zero tolerance policy that works. And this is exactly what we want to do, to completely revolutionize all of these problems so they're completely stopped.
yeah. I mean, I totally agree, Marcus. I think even if we could just get it to a point where you need some sort of facial recognition in, fingerprint
Yeah,
touch or something, so everyone is accountable for their social
yeah.
media account. And it may be fines hitting people where it hurts
Yes,
in the
this is
wallet.
exactly.
There'll be
This is what we're
way less,
saying.
like if like you're not gonna go on social media and racially abuse a black player for missing a penalty if you know everyone is gonna know who
Precisely.
you are, and you're gonna start getting fines for it. I mean, that is just a no-brainer. It should be done already. I think if you had a referendum today, everyone would vote for this. Like, it's a simple thing. But Marcus,
Yeah.
we'll move on slightly
Can I
to
just
social.
say though, Brad,
Yep.
sorry, I really, because you've hit our policy on the head. That's exactly it. In our system, if somebody just said some racial slur about some black football player online, it would be immediately traceable to them. It would go straight to the authorities. The evidence is there. They'd be prosecuted instantly. because the evidence is there and it comes from them, and then they would be fined. So it is self-funding. So it means however many people, if 10,000 people want to go on and abuse somebody online, 10,000 people will get prosecuted and the police will get 10,000 fines out of it. And there's no lack of resources. The whole system works and it kills it dead. And you've explained it, and that's exactly our policy.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, you're going to get people out there that say, oh, you should be able to say whatever you want, freedom of speech, hurty word. These are the people that put out things out there. But
Well,
it's
Brad, can I look? Freedom of speech is the most abused term there is. Freedom of speech does not mean the right to attack others, and this is always confused. Freedom, every freedom we have comes with an equal amount of responsibility and accountability. So if we want the freedom to drive our cars, we have to be responsible that we're doing it safely. If we want the freedom to drink, we need to make sure we're not driving afterwards. If we want the freedom to run businesses or whatever, we've got to run them responsibly. And if we want the freedom to speak, then we've got to speak responsibly and kindly and respectfully. And there's so much debate about this, but it's such a simple issue.
yes.
Freedom of speech must come with responsibility of speech.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get why someone, obviously, I know if someone's got certain agenda or whatever, but I don't get why you would want to try and defend the right to be able to be racist to people online. Why would you want to do that?
Exactly.
Your mind has been destroyed. You've been corrupted to even think like that. There are people, Marcus, I crap you not, especially in America where they have these rights already, where you can pretty much say whatever you want as long as you're not inciting. And people say, and I've literally seen people racially abuse police officers in their faces, and freedom of speech, I can say whatever I want, I'm allowed to do this. Like, what sort of society does that build us for, where you can do that? For, like, even if you just tweet that to say, right, you have a right, you have your freedom of speech in America. If you want to be evil, you do it in your house, but outside it's a public ordered offense. And I think in this country it is a public order offense if you say certain things. It doesn't even have to be racist. But we'll move on, Marcus.
Okay.
Social media, is there too much pressure on being successful and rich, and is this making us stressed and unhappy? Are we better off setting simpler sort of life sort of goals, or even a morality? Let's just say if everyone was brought up to believe that you have to have a wife, you have to have kids, you have to get a job, you have to work, you have to go out like the old school days. You go out, you're a gentleman, you work, you come back home, and you look after your kids and your wife. You're not rich, you don't have loads of money, but in this social media world, Marcus, the poorest of the poor just have to swipe once or twice, and they're going to see a whole load of beautiful women that they've never seen before. Well, now it's a common thing, but a whole load of beautiful women, a guy driving a yacht, loads of girls in there. Like, these are the things that men, especially young people, aspire to. Now it's being looked like with the rise of Mr. T, and I say Mr. T because TikTok don't like his name. He's saying to kids to go tell their doctor, "Where's your Bugatti?" Basically. So basically, they're projecting out there that unless you got a Bugatti, you're failing in life. So what do you think, Marcus?
So I think people are under massive pressure from social media and for society at large to follow these sort of cliches of success. We're relentlessly taught that more money is better, more fame is better, more status is better, and we have a very narrow view about what constitutes status. How much money you earn, what cars you're driving, what sort of home you have, what clothes you wear. This is where, again, education is absolutely essential, because to solve any problem in society, you have to re-educate all of society. And this is an example of that. In schools, we need to talk about the psychology of status and success and all of this stuff, so that people can actually start to discern between what it is actually they really want to do in their heart and what is going to fulfill them, and what is stuff that's coming from outside that they're being told that maybe isn't suitable for them and they don't want to do. And to have that level of self-awareness, to be able to discern between what you truly want and the messages you're given from outside and distinguish between them in which serves you, takes a lot of education and training and self-awareness. And we believe that is how to resolve this problem. You have to teach people how to be able to discern for themselves what it is they really want to do, rather than what they're told to do and what images they're told to follow. So all of that we want to put in the education system, in the national curriculum. It's all part of psychology education, the psychology of status, of our group instincts to follow the group culture. All of this will be unpicked in our education, so people understand how they're being motivated, when their instincts to follow are kicking in, and when they need to discern those instincts and really, connect with what's in their hearts. And we actually have a following your heart policy, because this is essential. You need to get to that place where you're following your heart and doing what you really want to do with your life, not what you're told to do.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And when I think about this, there's two examples I always give. There are famous people that have all the money in the world, all the cars in the world,
Yeah,
everything that people think that they could ever want, and they go and unfortunately kill themselves. And you
yeah,
think to yourself, why would you want to kill yourself? You're a multimillionaire, you're famous, you've got everything you ever wanted, you've got a family. Why would you kill yourself? And obviously, like, going back to your thing there, your is it one of your party's principles or whatever? Following your heart is so true. If you don't know what you want, and if you're chasing things that you think you want, when you get
yeah,
them, yeah, sure, you can spend money, you can do this, and spending money is always great, but it's not enough. You have to follow your heart always. Like, some people might say
definitely.
as well, some people are quite cynical. They'll probably say, you're following your heart. That's a load of BS. I've got to go to work and pay my bills. You think I want to be laying these bricks for 12 hours in the rain sometimes and all the rest of it? I'm just doing what my dad showed me, is putting bread on the table and paying the bills. And I do think I get it. You have to do that. You have to put bread on the table if you've got kids and a family to support. But you also need to find that sort of, that balance in life where you got that little bit of you time as well. And if you don't have that
Yeah,
you time, there's only so long you can keep doing what you're doing before we find you, dangling
yeah.
somewhere, or, unfortunately, that is the reality. I think people do that. They are so focused on just paying the bills. They work themselves to an early coffin, basically. And it's challenging. It's challenging. So, Marcus, what
And,
are your parties? Sorry, go for it.
And brother, just pick up on that, because I think you're absolutely right. With our education policy, we will literally teach people how to take themselves through that process of discerning what it is that they want to do in their life. And part of that, we would show all children of a huge range of careers. So we take the children, into workplaces of all industries in the country. So they're exposed to everything. And what happens is, when you do this, certain children will say, "Oh, I really liked it on the farm." And other children will say, "Oh God, I love the building site and the machines." And other people say, "Oh, I loved the theatre." Oh, and other people would be like, "Oh my God, I was really fascinated by the power station we went to." This would be all part of our education system, so that we take children, we teach them how to explore and find out what it is they want to do. And you know what? Human beings are very diverse. And you're talking about laying bricks, okay? There's people who love building. I'm one of them. I love the trades. I love building. But there's other people who hate it, but they're good at something else. They might be good in the service industries, or the hotel business or something. So you need to expose children to all these opportunities and show them how to connect with what they love, and then encourage them to do that. And this is then their blueprint for enjoying both their work and their leisure. And once you do that, the whole economy hums. Everybody's happy at work. They wake up on Monday morning and they know, this is the career I want to do. I take pride in this. I love my work. They're productive. The economy hums. We got plenty of tax, plenty of public services, and the whole system starts to work. And it all starts with education and parenting. And that is our policy.
Yeah, I think that when you were saying that initially, the first thing that sprung to mind is that in this country we have one opportunity for children to have work experience that's actually put in place, and some kids, I think my daughter did it at 15. Some kids don't even find work placements, and they never even get that sort of opportunity. So I think something that might be worth looking at is at we don't just throw work experience on kids at 14. I
No,
think that we need to introduce kids to different sort of work experience. I think that needs to be part of the weekly curriculum, and it's a way of
definitely.
getting away from the school where kids can go and try out different workplaces
Yeah,
and see for themselves, because it is really difficult to know what you want to do. Most kids don't know what they want to do. Most adults, I
no,
speak to most adults all the time, and they're like, I still
no.
don't know what I want to do. I'm 50
Yeah,
years old. I still don't know what I want to do.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
difficult. But Marcus, you kind of explained the way your party would handle the policies to sort of tackle mental health and stuff. But is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Well, I think we've said it all.
We have,
It
yeah.
starts parenting, and then you back it up with education. It's this double pronged approach. You get your parenting right first. Every child brought up in a stable, loving environment where the parents are present and they're paid to do that. This is very radical. So they don't have the worry of earning money. Their job is to raise the children. And then that feeds into the education system. And the education system gives them all that knowledge of psychology and how they work, and social media pressures and pressures of society to do this. It covers the whole thing they need to know about themselves and how they're influenced and how they make decisions. And with that, you've got everything covered. An adult is then fully prepared for every eventuality in life as far as mental health is concerned and everything else. And that's our policy, this
Yeah.
complete education system.
Yeah. And some people, some cynics might just say, we're as a population now, as human beings now, we're way too soft, way too sensitive. And some people might also say that, mental health issues are unavoidable. They're just part of life. You're going to go through ups, you're going to go through downs. Or, what would you do to try and resolve these problems? What should people be aiming for?
So it's a really interesting question because there's always going to be challenge in life. And again, this should be in education. I think we have a lot of confusion and debate about this. And like you say, there's certain people feel that you almost shouldn't have challenge in life, and it's sort of the government's fault if you have hard times in some way. And that's really not true. All of us will run into difficulties in our life at times. And you've got to educate and prepare children for that in their adulthood. But equally so, we need to resolve the fundamental problems we have with mental health in the country. And that, like I said, it is done through parenting and education. So even when you do that, when you resolve the mental health problems and you give children the upbringing that they need to be strong, happy, constructive human beings, when these challenges come on them, first of all, they're expecting it. They know, they've been taught you will have challenges. And secondly, they're then equipped to deal with it. So they've got both. They know it's coming, and then they know how to deal with it when it comes. And that way, they deal with it in a simple fashion where it doesn't turn into a crisis or a mental health breakdown. And again, that's our policy, to give them this full, realistic education of what adult life is going to be like and prepare them for it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that rang alarm bells straight away. There is fall on hardship. I used to have friends that used to have a car fund, and every month they'd put 50 quid in that car fund. And should their car break down, they go to their car fund, they use it. And I used to think to myself, damn it, why didn't I do something like that? And that's kind of the preparing, because
Yes,
finances
exactly.
finances are like when people start losing their jobs, and that
Yeah,
this is where the
yeah,
stress really comes in, when there's no money to put on the table, where you lose your
yeah,
job suddenly, you haven't put anything away. Some people say, look, I'm working every hour under the sun, I don't even have enough money to spend, I don't have enough money to save. Some people will say that, and I think to an extent it will be true for some people, but I still think there'll be one or two luxuries that they probably could have ticked off the box, and you maybe put that little, even if it was a fiver, if you put a fiver away for 3 or 4 years every week or every month, whatever, it's not a major amount of money, but it's still something. It's some sort of respite, and it's something that people really need to do. And I know you're big on this in terms of your policies, rainy day funds, like, you have to prepare for,
Yeah.
adversity, like, things couldn't go wrong at any minute. And to
Yes.
an extent, you mentioned the government aren't to blame for some of the stuff, but sometimes, like with wars and stuff, we didn't account, like, we got the Strait of Hormuz closed now, and that's due to not, well, Keir Starmer actually stepped in and done a pretty good job and said he weren't going to take part in this war, but America have decided to do this, and as a result, Iran has shut it down, and the petrol prices are going to keep rising. Apparently, they could be rising till the end of 2020, 2026. And it's challenging. It's very challenging, and
So,
yeah,
so Brad, all the issues that you're bringing up here, you see. So in an education system, you would talk about all of these type of life situations, all these different elements that all interact with each other. So as you pointed out, for example, a war kicks off in Iran. It affects prices in this country. It puts somebody in a difficult financial position. They then come under stress, and now they've got mental health problems. You see, so this situation in Iran that was started by Trump now personally affects somebody's mental health. There's this whole network of cause and effect, and things, something on the other side of the world affecting somebody's personal mental health. It's a huge network, and we would teach that entire understanding of that network to everybody in education. So they're fully aware of the entire system that they live within and how it affects them and how they can protect against it, like you said. So we would teach them about money management. We would always say you must have at least 6 months worth of living expenses, your total living expenses in cash saved minimum, so that you prepare yourself for situations like this war in Iran. And then that's protecting your mental health, your stress. And so, this is the complete system of education we want to put together that prepares adults for any eventuality. They know how it comes about, how they can prepare against it, and what they need to do to be fully ready for it in their adulthood.
yeah. This refers me to a comment that was left in one of our videos when we were talking about stuff like this, and someone was saying, "Here we go again. Blame the average person rather than taxing the rich." Basically, they were suggesting that we should, like, they were saying, like, you're taxing the rich. The rich are getting away with paying less than 1% tax in some cases, and you've got 50% of people that can't afford to eat. Now, these are serious concerns. Yes, the education, I've gone a bit deeper with you in terms of that. So, I'm with you on people should have been prepping for these sort of things. But I also think, there are people that are stuck in the mess now. And there are people, I know people that are struggling to eat. It's not a nice situation to sort of be in. Like, as a man, finances and stuff like that, this is like, this is a big thing right now, and this is ultimately what's pushing men to that breaking point where they feel like failures. We've spoke about social media pressures and stuff, Marcus. I
Yeah.
know you obviously, Marcus, you're running for prime minister. Do you have any mental health issues? And
Yes, I mean, I promised at the beginning that I was going to be open about this. Mental health issues have been a big part of my life. I've struggled with depression, anxiety. I'm a little bit on the autistic spectrum. I have a bit of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. I've got quite an intense noise phobia, and I've experienced a lot of loneliness and isolation in my life. And I'm very happy to be open about these things, because these are, it's central in my politics, and it's given me a wealth of experience, and it's sent me on a path where I've had to dig really deep and understand how human beings work. And it connects me with all the people out there who struggle with mental health, with stress, loneliness, these broader issues of mental health and emotional health. And, it shaped my politics hugely. It gives me this knowledge and experience of humanity that is central in everything I do in politics.
And you said you struggle with isolation and stuff. Is there any sort of what conclusions, what answers did you get? Like, was something making you unhappy? Did you find the answers for yourself?
So, yes, this is, you see, because I was struggling with mental health, and to a lesser extent, I still do. It's meant I've had to, I went on a path from a very young age of trying to understand what was happening inside me so I could resolve this pain that I was experiencing. And that is why I've ended up studying psychology my entire life, because I've been trying to answer these questions. But with things like the loneliness and the isolation,
Yeah.
I've gone through a process where I've ceased contact with my family, or my entire family other than my daughter, and I'm estranged from my son. And this has been extremely challenging for me. But again, you see, I've had to understand why all of that has happened in my life. And this is when you see many people go on journeys like this. People have difficulty within families, they have difficulty with their children, they have difficulty with mental health. There's a lot of elderly that are lonely and isolated, and people who are younger. Now, how do you understand all of that system that people struggle with? And, pretty much everybody suffers. If you cast the net very wide with mental health and you include things like loneliness, isolation, emotional difficulties, stress, nearly everybody at some point in their life will have some mental health, mental and emotional health issues. So the experience I've had helps me understand all of this, what we are as human beings in Britain, and helps connect me with the struggles people have. And, it's led me to solutions to all of this. And all of this gets resolved. The whole thing gets resolved through the right parenting and the right education. It's so fundamental, those things are. You can literally resolve this entire problem, in our view, if you get your parenting and education right.
Um, I asked you quite a serious one. You can throw it straight back at me.
Well, sorry, I'm not following you there.
Just I asked you a question about your mental health. I'll welcome you to throw it back at me if you like.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, what's your views with this, Brad? How have you been affected by mental health? Has it been an issue in your life?
I would have to. I am generally quite a happy person,
Yeah,
and basic things make me happy, but probably my lowest time like is I can specifically point to what made me unhappy. I was running a business, I was doing all the hours under the sun, and then it was a business based on referrals where you'd have to pay people out, you'd have to pay people that worked for you to pay you out, and then literally there was a clawback process on this, and literally it just got to the point where it was just way too much, and I couldn't deal with it. Like, the only way out, I couldn't even see a way out. Like, there was just like no money coming in. I've got people pestering me for money, robbing Peter to pay Paul. This was a
yeah,
very stressful time for me. People phoning me up, I've got no electricity in my house, I can't afford it, and I'm battling my own problems as well. So I had a whole load of people's issues on me, and it ended up, I had to do like one of those debt consolidations things, because I basically all the debt fell on me, and I had to ultimately do one of those payment over to, like, one of those IVA things, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The moment I done that IVA, literally all my problems were cleared. I didn't have bailiffs turning up trying to take stuff off me. That's a very emasculating thing. That I really, really struggled. That was probably my lowest time. But generally, with my mental health, I'm generally quite happy, quite bubbly.
yeah.
Basic things. There is a small element, I suppose, of societal pressure as well. But I've always been brought up humble. My mum was a very humble lady. You know, we never had much growing up, but she always kept that sort of pride in us and made sure, you know, you might not have all the money in the world, you might not be this, but you know, you've got your brothers, you've got your sisters, you've got your friends. Go out, play in the park, have fun. And
Yeah.
now it's all the rich kids that have the problems and all the mental health issues because, you know, unfortunately in this day and age, people want to just shower their children with everything. They don't want them to go through no adversity. Like, you know, they don't want like eat, like I missed a few meals when we were younger. You know, these weren't I didn't have the best of best childhoods, but I must admit, we were always happy. My mum always installed this sort of,
Yeah.
you know, just sort of family thing. We would go for it together, and you know, it was like I think about it now and we laugh or whatever. I'm a bit scarred from a bit. I would say I'm still a little bit scarred from some of the like Christmases. I really struggle with Christmases sometimes as well. I suppose because the idea of like giving my kids loads of presents and stuff, like you know, it's a weird feeling because it sort of brings me back to the days where you know, I never had presents to open up on Christmas Day, and that there's definitely an element of that, I suppose. But you know, generally, you know, it's mainly been money. That's those dark days when my business was getting taken away from me and stuff. That was the hardest time I ever had to deal with, I would say.
So, something that I'd like to ask you straight away. So, when you were struggling with your business and stress, and you went through that whole experience, like you said, you found a solution, you came out of it, and now obviously you're in a much better position. So, when you look back on that period of your life, that whole experience, do you feel it's been valuable to you? Do you feel you learned a lot through it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely learned from it, and definitely learned from it. But what it's done, Marcus, it's taken away a little bit of my the old me. Like the old
Yeah.
me was very like I was self-employed, I think, from 21. You know, I've always lived off the land. I would go and, you know, do some sort of legitimate deals and stuff. Like I was a very big, very good salesman back in my day. Like, you know, I used to be quite happy with not working, not having a solid sort of foundation income. This is like the last 5 or 6 years very sort of new to me, sort of having a sort of safety net where I'll just do a couple of days or something like that. But back in my old days, I was just a different sort of animal. I was more go get it sort of thing. You know, I wouldn't stress if I didn't earn any money for 2 weeks. I wouldn't stress because I would know I'll just do a deal and I'll make 4 grand that week or something like that. That's the way I've been. But me relying on a safety net, you know, of doing getting a guaranteed income that has I'm enjoying it better for sure, but it's also taken a little bit away from me, and it's sort of like, you know, you kind of miss it a little bit.
So I think you see, again, this is one of the things we will sort of want to instill in people and educate people with. You know, life's a journey, and you have these experiences, and we want to. When you have these challenging experiences, we want to teach people how to process that and how to get the best out of it and learn from it. And then what you learn from it, look at these different elements you're talking about. You're talking about who you were after this experience and who you were before, and then the stressful experience in between that. And this is all giving you different perspectives and different experience. And we want to help people understand how all these events in their life give them information and knowledge and experience, which allows them to construct an even better life for themselves, how to work with all of that and make the best of it and get the best of every part of your life experience. So, you know, this is a whole journey for people, and it's a whole educational process, and it's something we want to instill in everybody in their education about how to plot their path through life and learn from all their experiences, make the best of it, and then reconstruct their life in the best way for them to
Yeah.
achieve what they want that really fulfills them.
Yeah, I would say as well, just one more thing to people. One of the major things that helped me get through those dark days of, you know, bankruptcy and all the rest of it, I was able to put myself 3 months ahead in the future. So basically, I said to myself, right, things are crap now. In 3 months' time, I'll just get a solid basic job income. I'll be able to pay my bills. I've got my IVA thing set up, and everything will be fine. That's what I was able to do to get me through it. So look project, manifest 3 months down the line and come away from how you're feeling right now. And this is something, I feel like this is something that gets people to the point where they do go and end up committing suicide. I'll just say it, because they can't get out of that mindset of where they are right now. And this is a very challenging, it's not easy as well, but the one thing I was able to do is literally do that. Project 3 months down the line. Forget how I'm feeling now. 3 months down the line, I'll be fine. And that's what I done. And lo and behold, 3 months down the line, I was fine.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it sounds like that was a very interesting journey for you, and it's made you a different person who's wiser and older.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then Marcus, we've mentioned suicide just there. You mentioned battling with your mental health. Have you ever sort of had any suicidal thoughts?
Well, I went through a period, it was about 15 years ago. I had, similar to yourself, Brad, it's interesting hearing your experience, because I went through a period where I was getting divorced, and it happened right at the same time I was making the biggest investment of my life. I'd remortgaged my home, and I was investing in building, redeveloping a business park. And everything came together. My wife moved out, my children moved out. Well, I had them half the week, and I was at my point of maximum debt. So I owed the bank money on 2 mortgages. I owed my family money. I owed my ex-wife money, and I just finished my business park. I had built a large commercial building for renting out, and it was empty. So I had no income at all. And there was a couple of other things that happened. We then, I had some lodgers who came to live with me. They were actually my neighbors next door, and they were evicted. And I took them in as sort of to help them because they were struggling with bills and they were evicted. And it turned out that they were actually the most extraordinary long con artists. And I was very vulnerable at that time, and they preyed on that and encouraged me to go into business with them, to set up a business in my empty building so that we'd get some use out of it and start generating some income. And I set up a car repair business with this chap, and I funded it all, the whole lot. And basically, to cut a long story short, he stole everything. He stole all the cars we had that I bought, all the equipment I bought, everything. He didn't put one penny in. He had no money. And he conned me out of basically in the region of £50,000 on top of all those debts. And, I was struggling with mental health prior to that as well. And this really was a point at which everything broke down in my life. And before he stole everything, he actually was stealing from me in my own home as well. And I didn't realize. And he was saying he said we got broken into while I was away and stuff was nicked. And it was actually him. And he nearly persuaded me. I was so vulnerable and broken. He nearly persuaded me to commit insurance fraud to try and get some money. This was probably the lowest point in my life where I felt completely broken. And I got through it. And this was where I felt so broken. This feeling, overwhelming feeling of wanting to commit suicide came over me for a short period of time. Now, it did all resolve. And one of the things I realized, I could see, I nearly was encouraged to enter into criminal activity, insurance fraud. And because of that experience, because I was taken to the point where I was completely broken and I became completely vulnerable, and I lost contact with common sense and moral values. Because I was taken to that point, it gave me a massive insight into how people who mean well and are trying to do everything right in their life can be taken to these situations where everything breaks down and something snaps within them, and they're getting involved in crime or something else, or their mental health is falling apart. this experience gave me such an insight into the vulnerability of human beings and how anybody in Britain can struggle and get caught up in these very difficult events that break them down and cause them to do things they shouldn't be doing. And this, these type of experiences, and I've had difficult, challenging experiences throughout my life, and they give me this insight and they equip me to lead because I really feel connected with people, their vulnerability, and what it's like to really, be on your ass and be struggling and broken. And so, I regard these things as huge assets. No, would I want to repeat that again? No. Am I proud that I nearly got involved in insurance fraud? No. But by God, it's given me valuable experience to lead people.
Mm. Marcus, with all this coming to light, with mental health issues and the stories you've told me, do you think you're fit to lead the country with that sort of history?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't lead without experience. You can't understand people and the difficulties people have unless you've had them yourself. And, this is just sort of touching the surface. There's so many experiences I've had where I've struggled with things and I understand what it's like to have problems. And, that's what people want in a leader. They want somebody who understands them from similar personal human experience, who knows what it's like to have problems, financial problems, mental health problems, family problems, relationship problems, divorce, and then somebody who can then guide them through that and show them the way out of it and how actually we can change the whole of society so that we're all prepared for this stuff. So I
Yeah.
think it supremely equips me to lead. I regard it as essential experience for any leader.
Yeah. I think what people want mostly now from their politicians is honesty. They just want honesty and they want people to tell them how it is. I mean, I don't believe that there's any perfect human beings out there. I don't know why there's this sort of standard that's tried to put out on people. You find out someone, has a fetish for men, let's just say, like in
Yeah.
politics right now, for instance. I don't know why we feel that we need to beat them with a broom for their desires or whatever they've got. Like, we, as human beings, we're all sexual human beings. I sound like you now, Marcus. We all have things that we like, things that we don't like, different taste and stuff. I don't see why we want to attack people for small things. I mean, if it's obviously it's criminality and stuff like that, we can't have someone that's involved in crime take part in
No.
lead the country. There's obviously a limit. We've got to have a standard. But I mean, some of the stuff that's used now to beat down politicians is just ridiculous, Marcus. But Marcus, thank you very much for opening up there. Just finally now, Marcus, what advice do you have for anyone that is struggling with their mental health?
So I think it's four things. The first thing is talk. Mental health issues are basically universal. Everybody struggles with it at some point in their life, pretty much, of one form or another. So talk to people and you'll find others are having similar experience. Get expert help. Try and get a therapist if you can. So that's the first thing, talk and get expert help. The second thing, as I've said, you're not alone. You're actually in the absolute majority. So many people feel isolated when they have mental health, but actually it unifies people. If we're honest, we all struggle with stuff. And so do bear in mind, if you're feeling alone and you're struggling with mental health, you aren't alone. Most of the country has struggled with this at some point in their life, and there's plenty of people out there that can help you, professional help, there's charities, etc. And then the third thing is never give up. Go on that journey of your mental health and never give up trying to resolve the issues you have within you, and always look for solutions. And I've mentioned it before, use AI. I'm not suggesting have a human relationship with AI, but AI is a fantastic tool for researching things and finding out anything you want to about mental health and the help that's available. So use AI as well. And finally, any mental health issues or challenges of any nature you're having, try and see them as assets and a gift in your life. When you struggle with mental health, it deepens you hugely. It gives you a window into human nature that people who don't struggle, they don't have that understanding. So it broadens your experience and who you are immensely, and it's an incredibly powerful gift. Having mental health issues, it can enrich and deepen you hugely. So try and see the value in it as you're going through that journey of resolving it, and afterwards draw on that experience and use it for the rest of your life. So
Yeah.
that's my advice for people who are struggling with mental health.
Okay. And one thing I will say to people is, I'll share a quick story. When I was very young, I think I had stolen a couple of penny sweets from the shop or something like that, and I'd been caught by my brother, and he was threatening to tell my mum, and I was petrified of my mum when I was younger. Like, she was the discipliner, she was the one that dealt out the discipline. Let's just say she had a little wooden spoon or a little belt sort of thing, and I was scared for my life. I was only young. I'd stolen some sweets from the shop, and I thought that I was going to get the. I don't know what I thought in my head, but for a small second, I thought about jumping out of a window. Like, literally, it was that bad. Like, I was really young. I generally thought about jumping out of a window, and this is why I always say to people: make sure you let your kids know. Always bring your kids up to know if they have done something wrong. Take the licks. Take the licks. Just take it. Take the licks and face up for it. And it's a very important message, because I think to myself sometimes, cool, imagine if I'd have jumped out that window. Good God. And then when my mum got back, all she done is slap me on the hand. Like it was nothing. And, but, you could have children out there that might not have had that sort of, strength to say, no, I'm not going to do that sort of thing. Let's just face the music. So I feel like that's a very important message to people to tell their children, no matter what they've done, face it like a man or like a woman and just take your punishment. That's it. And that's a very good message that I thought I'd just put out there.
Okay.
And just going out for our new show on Tuesday, we're going to be talking about this Henry Nowak case, and how it's been dealt with, how it's being used to sort of further people's political agendas. Marcus is obviously running for general election at the next general election for Prime Minister, and I'm very interested to see what he thinks of the current sort of state of politics right now. You've got people calling for the death penalty, you've got people calling for absolute rage, like we've got 11 police officers injured and probably more riots to come. Marcus, I look forward to
Yeah.
hearing your views on this, Marcus.
There's a lot of issues there that we're going to unpick, and we're going to look at ways where all of this can be resolved, and maybe comment a bit on what's going on and what other politicians are saying about this.
Okay, guys, join us at 1 o'clock.
And Brad,
Yep.
as I said to you before, this was a Sikh chap, wasn't it, who committed this crime?
Yep.
And the viewers might find it interesting that actually my children are half Sikh. I married a Sikh woman, so this is a topic that sort of culturally is very relevant to me. So, and I have an insight into the Sikh community directly because, like I said, I married a Sikh woman, my ex-wife. So I've got another interesting perspective there to add to this.
Can't wait. Guys, join us at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. We're going to be talking all about this Henry Nowak case and the way politicians have been dealing with it. Peace and love to you.
Thank you everyone for watching. I'm Marcus White, leader of Everyone is God, Britain's most visionary political party. Subscribe to us on YouTube or visit our website if you would like to find out more and get involved.